All right, very cool. Here we are again. Talk
Um,
about Worm and all these crazy goings on in these chapters. Got some
Indeed.
pretty sweet fighting action to get into.
Okay. So, got the link in the Discord now.
Very cool.
Okay. Cool. We're set.
Ooh, yeah. I always like seeing the art every week.
Yeah, I gotta start the speed. Oops. Speed draw.
Hey Vale, hey Vic.
Hey. As you can see, the sniper team is being portrayed here. And who else could that be? Who knows?
Yeah, some sort of jolly character. Look at how he's smiling.
Yeah. Oh, there's two.
The more the merrier.
Yeah. Oh, we got to remember to set it to live chat so that all the sauciest chats will show up and we won't miss messages from the audience.
Of course.
And then we also want to do the reminder of the audience participation question that'll be at the end of this episode. It's make up a badly specific superpower, such as you can fly, but only while you're touching a rodent, and the more rodents you're holding, the faster you fly, or something else weird and specific and often not very useful. Which I think that was a great question. I'm not sure that I have an answer, unfortunately. I thought about it and I was just like uh, too mentally zonked out this week to come up with a really cool one, so I didn't write any
That's all
down.
right. I have a couple I thought of, and there's a couple good
Oh,
answers as well in the audience participation channel.
I
So,
did see that. I didn't read them ahead of time because I wanted to have my on the spot reactions to things. So I'll have a lot to look forward to. Uh,
mhm.
if you want to address the chat, I'm just reading it now.
Yeah, Vale. We'll read your little backstory when we get to that, and I think that the stream will enjoy it quite a lot.
And
Two
look,
plus four times five says they'll be here for only about 15 minutes. That's all right. We're glad to have you.
um, uh,
Vic says Quinn's a pro at coming up with bad powers. I'm sad he's not here. Then I'd love to hear what he'd come up with.
oh man, he's come up with all these ones at work because he asks us questions every day. And so like one of them was it you become unstoppable for 30 seconds, but you also light on fire. Um, that was one
Ah,
of them. Another one was that you can become invisible for only 7 seconds, but when you become visible again, you are wearing a random different assortment of clothes. And we did get to bargain him down to the idea that the clothes would at least keep you legally decent. Um,
yes,
uh,
the power cares about that.
yeah. Oh, and then yeah, that you can climb really good with only your hands, like Spider-Man style. But then your hands are like gross looking for 24 hours. They're all messed up.
Mm.
So these are just examples. He comes up with lots of questions. Those were just memorable ones with bad downsides.
Neat.
So yeah. Um. But yeah, I think we can jump into the chapter. Do you want to start or should I?
How about you start?
Okay. Um, this is one of those nice sentence to sentence chapter transitions. It reiterates what's happening with someone repeating what they just said to them on the phone. Lungs there, I echoed, as much to let Sundancer and Labyrinth know as to help myself process the idea. That's why Skitter does it, but it also gets us back on the same page with what's generally happening if we're reading week to week. So it's like a triple use.
Yeah, it's informing the audience, but it's also informing the characters there, and good to keep that sort of stuff diegetic.
Yeah.
Anyways, Bitch says that Kaiser blocked her from joining the fight with Lung. Ignore Lung, I stressed. If Kaiser wanted to go it alone, he could reap the consequences. I agree with the whole let the Nazi fight the giant angry dragon, but Lung only becomes more and more of a problem as time goes on. If you let him ramp up, ah, it seems questionable to me.
Yeah, it's I think that initially maybe she wanted to retreat after they regrouped, but it's unclear. Um uh
Quickly, sorry, Vale said, "Oh my God, become visible for anywhere from 10 seconds to 10 hours. But when you regain visibility, you can't see for the same amount of time, and your skin makes a deafening loud gong sound." I had thought of it like be invisible, and then when you become visible again, make a loud noise, because that's a classic like haha sort of thing. The being blind part of it as well. Oof.
yeah, that's pretty rough. That's a big backlash on your power. That would be unfortunate to have. Skeeter prioritizes her teammate and the enticingly hot orange amphibian man. Fair play. When Bitch says that she would have to dismount to go upstairs, Skitter doesn't argue with her, instead telling her to draw Oni Lee outside and gives the prescient advice, "Watch your back!" Skitter hangs up and gears up. As her phone goes back into the storage compartment, the knife and the baton come out.
Yeah, I mean, Taylor's like, hey, gotta save bitch and gotta save neuter. Like it.
Yeah,
Sundancer's confused by what Skitter is doing, and Skitter gives the obvious answer that she can't leave her teammate alone with an assassin. Skitter pulls in all the bugs she can, moving them and running towards the warehouse. Bitch is still writing Brutus as she runs out the door, and as Bruce runs out the
oops.
door and Skid stop to look back through the explosion damaged wall at Angelica and Judas, snapping their jaws at Oni Lee.
Yeah. They're like backing him into a corner upstairs, and he doesn't care.
No,
So
not at all.
yeah. Unfazed, Oni Lee teleports out of the situation, but one of the benefits of his particular power is that when he leaves a location, you basically can't tell what's happened until like 5 to 10 seconds later, since he's leaving a copy behind, or like becoming the new copy, whichever. I'm just gonna go back and forth, however is easiest to say in the moment, because we know which one it is.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but the moment to the moment of fight, 5 to 10 seconds can be like a long time. And he looks at the two dogs, then appears on Brutus's back. Once he's out of the pinch he was in, Oni Lee starts by trying to cut Bitch's throat. "Bitch!" I screamed. It didn't matter. I thought that was a
Bitch!
funny quote. Yeah, like every time that just the whole sentence is, "Bitch!" Yeah.
And it happens. Like I posted like the 4 examples from just this one chapter
Mm-hmm.
in the audience participation. There's a lot of cases where Taylor just says "bitch" or "bitch." Just
Yeah, definitely.
she's all bitched up.
Yeah. Well, you know, they they got to talk to each other, and yeah. However, Oni Lee is not stopped by any superpowers. He's stopped by a truly excellent power, a gun. Um,
I mean, it's a pretty strong blaster power right there.
yeah, it's got excellent range, and by teaming up with a thinker cape, then the spotter, he's able to do even better.
Very impressive, yeah.
Yeah, it's a two-man team. I love the interplay of their powers. Um, 2 + 4 × 5 says, "Bitch, please." Um,
Exactly. So that duplicate was thoroughly murdered by Quill's sniper team. Killing them is a good moment to stop them from getting to stop their own selves from getting murked, but it doesn't exactly solve the problem of the infinitely duplicating knife guys. It's unclear if he has a top speed at which he can port around, but it's clearly pretty fast, and we never really get a good look at the limitations of his power. Every time one of his duplicates gets left behind, it's only a few seconds until there's a bunch of chaff in the air blocking sight lines and getting in your face. Really, the ash is the worst part of fighting Oni Lee.
It's coarse and rough and irritating, and it gets everywhere.
All right. I hope the audience enjoyed that little moment.
It was honestly like coming back to Worm. It was one of my first thoughts reading this chapter. I'm like, oh, yeah, everyone's gonna hate this.
Yeah. Oh man. Skitter looks back and sees the silhouettes of Coil's guys set up as a sniper team pair on the roof of a building nearby. She's no fool, so she knows that Oni Lee is still porting and lurking around the area, and if he was really dead, his body wouldn't explode into carbon ash. Skitter has the insight to know that he's probably moving from spot to spot as quickly as possible to not leave behind a vulnerable body, looking for new vantage points and targets, then leaving behind copies of himself to act out the attacks. He's got a pretty cool power.
It's definitely a good strategy on his part. I think I have down in the powers section, I wrote, Oni Lee is following the ABCs, always be cloning.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Anyways, Skitter gets the bitch and they have a check-in. Felt the fucking steel in my throat. The snipers take out another Oni Lee, but at this point, they've only made themselves his primary target. Their location has also been found. The snipers, I breathed, whirling around. Skitter sees a fight on the roof they were firing from. Oni Lee managed to get the rifle from them and throw it off the roof, and when he's gone, the dust clouds he left behind block their line of sight with any small arms they might have on them.
And that's what we see in the art. Yeah.
Yeah.
Pretty cool.
That's the problem also, like, even if he can also be like a personal force multiplier. Like, he doesn't have to port directly away. He can port there again, and have like a second clone help him out for a few seconds.
Exactly. And I mean, even if he just like came in right before the dust cloud, he could see what's happening, and then the other people would be mostly blinded, and then like, yeah, there's just so much like timing shenanigans you could do with it.
That's true. Blocking line of sight means he can do a sort of Druid sort of thing or swarm clone sort of thing where he ports inside his own cloud, so you can't see how many clones are going to pop out, and then like 5 of them dogpile you.
Yeah. There's a lot of good stuff there. So Skitter starts feeling panicked, looking for where he went to, then hears Brutus make the giant monster dog version of a cry of pain. Oni Lee stabs a dog. This establishes that he is a bad guy, and probably deserves to have bugs shoved into his throat. Greg wrote that, but yeah.
Look, Clock Blocker doesn't deserve it. Oni Lee definitely deserves it.
Brutus starts flipping out, and Oni Lee casually rolls off and starts attacking Skitter with some dual knife-wielding strats. She's able to partially disarm him, but it only helps her for a moment as that copy turns to dust.
Things are starting to look dire when Oni Lee gets Skitter into more or less a full Nelson. And he has a really good follow-up as well, putting a version of himself in front of Skitter to stab the shit out of her. He doesn't know doesn't know her that well, or he would have known she'd do something like use her full Nelson copy. Like, use the full Nelson copy as leverage to get a really good two-legged kick on the stabby copy.
I mean, it's classic Taylor, so... or Skitter. It's both personas.
In a bad situation, leverage it a bit.
Yeah. Brutus gets a big bite on Stab Copy's whole body. Sadly, this means he gets a gross mouthful of Oni Lee dust. We see the injury Oni Lee gave Brutus, and in the quotation, one of his eyes was in ruins, and volumes of blood and other liquids were flowing from it.
How dare you?
I almost wanted to read that like what's his name? Garth Marenghi. Blood.
Blood.
Yeah. So Skitter has one of her many Brad Neely moments. Fuck this, I growled. And starts to draw her bugs from the building and sending them out the reserves from her costume, which were sort of her best ones, as we recall. But she's forming a big dragnet of bugs to find this teleporting dipshit.
Yeah, I think this is a little bit of Taylor learning from the previous fights where she was lacking situational awareness a bit. She's now like, okay, this guy is really slippery. But if I just put bugs everywhere, I can find out where he is.
She also, this is something that I thought of in the very first arc in, I think, chapter 1.5. She thinks about the fact that she doesn't need chalk or anything like it to find invisible opponents because of the nature of her power. So she's already had the idea to form like a dragnet of bugs to find an invisible opponent. This is just like an alteration of a previous plan.
Yeah. I'm just thinking of like times when she's been basically snuck up on before.
That's true too. Like when she got hit by Amy and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, obviously as well as before, but yeah.
Yeah, Skitter's able to use this to find out where he is right away. It's really helpful, but even with this advantage, he's still able to throw a knife at her face that lodges right into her mask, cracks one of the lenses, and knocks her over. Skitter's able to ball up so that she doesn't take another head injury. It takes Skitter a few moments to even figure out what happened. Then she pulls the knife out of her mask.
You know what I just realized is that she's a total roly-poly in that moment. She's an insect that balled up to save itself.
Mm-hmm. Get hit, curl up.
Yep. The bug dragnet gets lets Skitter know she has a moment, and she checks it on Bitch, who says, "Fucker stabbed me in the arm." Well, this obviously isn't ideal. Skitter doesn't think this injury is like that big a deal in the grand scheme of a fight like this. Not wanting to waste any time, Skitter moves into out of the cloud, Oni Lee left behind, to look around. She's just in time to see him tackling one of Coil's goons off the top of the roof, only to dust cloud while the mercenary just hits the ground.
Yeah, we learn later that's a 30-foot drop. Just
Yeah.
right off the top.
Oof.
Yeah, oof. Also, I just want to sort of mention, Bitch saying, I was stabbed in the arm. That could be anywhere from, I got a little nick to, I'm bleeding to death. And Taylor's just like, she's fine.
Yeah, I think it's from her demeanor. She,
That's fair. You think Bitch would be even angrier if she's bleeding to death?
I don't know. It just, I feel like she was just at her regular level of gruffness.
Oh, I see.
Vale says, she does seem to take on insect behavior regularly. It might be fun to analyze. Yeah, that's one of my themes. Taylor is bug. But, I think we're...
Yeah, I'll have to think on that. We can probably pull out some other instances, where Taylor does something that's a very bug-like instinct.
Yeah.
Anyways.
We'll figure out.
Yeah. So Oni Lee is moving and acting enough that it's hard to track what's going on. Sundancer gets hurt without Skitter even knowing what's happening to her. Oni Lee appears in Skitter's bug cloud, and she attacks him, swarms him, while she throws herself out of the way of another throwing. But the cool thing is, once they're on him, all the bugs start biting and stinging him. They seem to be sticking. Because we have a quote here which says, "Then I noticed something weird. More bugs popped into existence in the midst of the cloud, near Sundancer and Labyrinth. I felt the original bugs perish as they exploded into ash. He was taking them with him. I don't think he could help it."
Yeah. Pretty cool stuff. Turns out that the bugs are an excellent Oni Lee tracker. They're close enough and small enough that they catch a ride when he teleports around. Bitch! Here! I'm starting to just do my Sora voice when I do that. Bitch pulls up to Skitter riding Brutus out of the cloud, and Skitter tells her to get the dogs because she can track Oni Lee now. Also, Skitter gets a bunch of temporary bug clones, so hooray! Extra bugs!
You can just throw them into things wildly, even more so.
Basically, I think they just continue to attack the given Onais that they're on. Onis Lee.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, we don't really know, like, if the clones have a big pain response. Because I mean, presumably Oni Lee, if you stab him, you bite him, whatever else, the actual Oni Lee is going to be unhappy about that. But maybe the clones know that their clones can power through it to keep on doing. Or maybe if you distract them enough, it actually helps.
I would imagine the latter. Like it could be the original. We don't really know how if they like have some differences between him and them. But I always got the impression he just leaves behind exactly a regular him the human.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
And then he
Uh,
just knows that he teleported away. So this one's like, okay, I'm going to fling myself off the roof.
right. Exactly. That's how I always imagined it, based on his behavior.
Mm.
Um, But Vale says, obviously, we can't talk about that yet, but over time, it might be fun to pull those bits out for the stream. Definitely. And then Megafire's here. Whoops, copied the bugs. Megafire, if you didn't see the audience participation, I think that you may have some ideas for it, given your history. It's about crappy powers. So, yeah.
Yeah, this makes me wonder though. The bugs stick to Oni Lee. I have to wonder if like any other sort of sticky power would as well. Like you hit him with. Well, I'm thinking of Crawler's power in particular, but there are others that would adhere to you as part of just hitting you with them.
Yeah, like I mean, going way into the future, the withdrawal oozes I think would stick to you.
Mm-hmm.
So that'd be crazy how they'd interact with teleporting because they're like high tech goop. But anyway,
Yeah. So let's see. Right after Bitch whistles to get the dog's attention, he appears behind her. Skitter points and yells. Brutus whipped around, snapping and snarling, and Oni Lee had to backpedal to escape being caught in the mutant's jaws. He disappeared just a second later.
yeah,
Yeah.
I was having trouble not just like basically using the same wording, and I was like, I'll pull the quote. Yeah. I think it's pretty interestingly written too,
Mm-hmm.
very evocative. Um, but Skitter's now directing her side of the fight almost entirely. Get one dog near those guys. I pointed to Sundancer and Labyrinth. We should join them ASAP. Skitter can't follow exactly what she's doing to indicate to the dogs, but Bitch is clear enough that Angelica joins them and Judas goes to defend the others. Bitch offers a hand to Skitter, and she gratefully accepts the help and joins her on Brutus's back to ride toward Sundancer and Labyrinth.
Yeah, this is one of the advantages of having a thinker on your team, really, is that even when someone has a confounding power like Oni Lee, if they can get a beat on him by whatever method, then his teleporting around becomes much less of a defensive mechanism for him. If they can always just point and say, the real one's right there, they're like, uh-oh, things
Yeah.
might get bad for me really quickly.
Yeah, like half your strats don't work anymore because they're like they go from pretty safe to very risky just suddenly.
Yeah. Yeah, you can't really create a clone in a very open position because then you can be attacked instantly before you can potentially teleport again.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Anyways, Labyrinth starts bending the city into far more exciting shapes. As we approach Sundancer and Labyrinth, the sidewalks on either side of us dropped out of existence, leaving only a bottomless pit where they had been. Skitter is momentarily confused, but she keeps it cool despite the many labyrinthine things she's encountering. A lot of changes are being made to the landscape around them, but we'll mostly cover those in the power section later. Labyrinth follows up by adding a chess theme. Thankfully, she doesn't force anyone to wear chess costumes. That would be silly.
Yeah, that'd be too much.
Yeah, who
Um,
would do that?
some sort of. I'm just thinking of that one. I don't know if he's actually with other people, but that knight cape or sorry, bishop cape near the end of the book who has like a chess power where he can sort of chess move people around,
Mm-hmm.
which, boy, he must look like an idiot.
Look, I can't help but think that a lot of the capes that have really strong, sort of weird themes, like Mirrodin, people make fun of them a lot. They're like, "Oh, look at that nerd over there, dressing like a wizard, using a staff. What are you doing?"
Yeah, it's a little silly, but I mean, like, so is all capedom basically. Like, Taylor's a bug.
Sure. Yes.
Anyway, Brutus has to leap out of the way to not get hit by one of the chess squares. They're moving all about because of Labyrinth's power, raising and lowering to fuck with anyone who might walk over them. Another column of stone juts at them from the side of a building, but they're actually to get to Sundancer and Labyrinth. Uh, I don't know how I messed that sentence up. But when they actually get to Sundancer and Labyrinth, they're in the clear. "This is you?" I asked Labyrinth, awed as I climbed down off Brutus.
Yeah, and being odd here is pretty appropriate. So then Labyrinth looks like she's just absolutely changing everything in the city around them. But touching Skitter, Labyrinth is able to change Skitter's perception to see the normal world again. Labyrinth doesn't explain, but it seems that despite being able to fade the effects for someone, her power is not hallucination. Skitter starts to understand that there's a bigger than normal communication gap. You can't explain because you can't or don't talk.
Yeah.
Uh,
There! Oni Lee is having a major hard time now that he has an active harassing force that he can't avoid. Because it keeps teleporting with him. The bugs. Thrown off his stride, he's slower to teleport and keeps falling over things. "Bitch!" I pointed. Still managing to avoid terminal dog bite. Oni Lee's reaction times are slowing down more. And another teleport, and he throws some knives in Judas's face, but he's clearly losing his stride.
yeah. It occurs to me, I'm a
Mm-hmm.
bit surprised that none Tinker has tried sticking him with a tracking device before, because they could do something almost identical to what Taylor's doing. And like we know that a lot of Tinkers put tracking devices in their Tinker Tech. Kid Win has some in his skateboard,
Bye,
and
2
I
plus
presume
4
Arms
times
Master
5.
has a bunch as well.
Bye-bye.
Later.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think both of them would have tons of just tiny tracking devices or like a small piece of tech that would work.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, Skitter keeps pointing out Oni Lee the moment he appears, thanks to bugs. A sniper takes the opportunity to relieve him of one of his shins.
Mm-hmm,
When
mm-hmm,
he reappears the next time, he still has the injury from the sniper shot. A moment later, that copy has his other knee destroyed, and Skitter realizes what happened.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm. That sniper got pushed off a three-story building, breaking a leg, then took 2 shots holding his rifle arm outstretched. That both hit. Fucking impressive man. And then the quote, "If he was willing to be that professional, I could damn well play spotter for him."
Yeah, I mean, taking shots with a rifle like full arm extended is already not going to be a terribly accurate thing. This man just like gets pushed off a tall building, lands, breaks a knee, and then just nails it.
Mm-hmm,
Are we
mm-hmm.
certain he's not a parahuman? Crazy.
Well, he could be. I mean, Coil
Anyway,
Coil totally would like bring in like more parahumans and just pretend they're not, so that his side doesn't look as strong. You know what I mean?
mm-hmm. That's true. Coil, he's a slippery snake.
He's by winning.
One
He's.
more good shot to kill a
Mhm.
copy, and Skitter can't sense him anymore. Only we wisely decided that the continued power of gun and aim are too much, and he makes like a tree and leaves. Sundancer looks to Skitter and keeps it together despite being gouged in the shoulder. Skitter checks Sundancer's okay, and she says it isn't the worst injury she's ever had.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Sorry, I cut you off there.
No, that's okay. I was just gonna say, like, Coil's kind of like, I don't know. He's just like plans on top of plans forever.
Yeah, I mean, he's no David Xanatos, but he definitely likes to layer them on.
Yeah. Scooter's particularly articulate today. "Okay, man, Coil's guy. She asks if he's going to be okay, and she says she'll take him at his word when he rasps out a yes. Um, she leaves him in the care of Labyrinth and musters Sundancer and Bitch to go save Neuter. And that's where the chapter ends.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, pretty good one. I don't have like a lot of extra thoughts about it, but it's like a pretty dynamic fight, I guess.
Yeah, and it starts off looking pretty bad. Oni Lee starts by, stabbing dog, nearly taking bitch's throat out, stabbing bitch in the arm, stabbing Sundancer. Like, there are knives everywhere.
It felt very
Taylor
tense the
gets hit in the
first time I
mask.
read it, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I like sometimes I forget how tense that I felt the first time I read this because it was I mean, not that knowing the outcome like ruins a thing, but I was very I thought just anything could happen, you know? Um but yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Oni Lee is a freaking assassin. Taylor's so dramatic. Thank you, Vic, for that. Yeah, it's true. It's true.
I mean, his opening thing in the fight is to try to slit bitch's throat from behind, so
Yeah,
he quickly shows that that is an accurate assessment.
I know, but it's just the way she says it that's funny.
Mm-hmm.
But I think we're good to move on to here. Do you want to start or should I?
I'll start, why not? Skitter happily abandons Labyrinth. I couldn't use someone that couldn't communicate with me. Oh, Skitter, you're being mighty ableist here. Bitch complains that they shouldn't be helping Neuter because it's his fault he got hurt. Skitter and Sundancer argue, but Bitch threatens to turn this car around. Skitter argues rather intimately that Faultline might hurt Tattletale or Region in retaliation. Bitch doesn't reply, but seemingly complies. They arrive at a warehouse with long tables of white powder drugs. Tons of white powder, scales, and measuring cups. They've clearly busted a criminal bakery.
Yes, definitely. You've
Yes.
solved the case.
I mean, that's why they have different tables. They have one for flour and one for sugar and baking powder, all sorts of things.
And it's all hanging in the air, you know, and it gets on your clothes. It gets everywhere, someone would say.
It's rough, it's coarse.
Getting their bread. You know what I just thought of is that if Oni Lee teleports around where the drugs are, he'll just ruin everything. So he actually can't fight in some sections.
Of ash and everything. Ugh.
Yeah, what a disaster.
To be fair, I have to imagine like anywhere he fights, it's like someone threw a bunch of shitty confetti everywhere. Someone's gonna have to like come through and sweep it all up and grumble like, "Oh my gosh, it's fucking Oni Lee. Never thinks of us janitors."
Well, I mean that, or they just leave it because they're like a kind of low rent city. You know what I mean?
That's fair.
Like in the upper end of town, maybe they clear it away, but I think most of the city they just leave it.
Vic says maybe his white powder is actually grade A coke. Oh, I didn't think about that.
Oh,
That's why his
clearly.
battles get so frenetic.
Yep. Megafire said, getting their bread, and Vale said, this reminds me of my youth when I worked in a criminal bakery. Yeah.
Ooh, we'll have to hear that backstory sometime.
That's the tragic backstory that led Vale to becoming a cape. Neuter is lying in a pool of blood surrounded by some thugs that are seemingly high out of their mind from Neuter's juices. Good way to put it, Vic. Juices. Neuter has a large knife and is breathing shallow. Large knife wound and is breathing shallow. He's all half dead. Skitter's feeling helpless as she can't do anything without potentially falling into a drug trip from touching his blood and such.
From touching his juices?
His juices.
Yes, of course.
You're right.
So Skitter, yeah, of course. So Skitter directs Bitch to grab some waterproof supplies from the drug-making stations. She asks Sundancer to stay with him while Skitter meanders over to an office with a bed that she had filled earlier with her bugs. She strips the stained sheets off. You want to read that quote, or should I?
Oh, I'll read it. It's pretty big. Um, Was it odd that this place freaked me out 10 times as much as nearly getting off by Oni Lee? Drugs had always spooked the hell out of me. One of the first times I'd ever ridden a bus, when I was around 5 or 6, I'd seen a meth head freak out, making enough of a ruckus that the driver had to stop and force him off. I'd never really gotten over that first impression, where just the idea of being around someone that was high made me sort of anxious. Yeah. And then, finally,
Yeah,
we get
finally.
true. Oh, go for it.
Sorry, I wasn't certain whether you wanted to or not since you paused there. Okay. So finally, we get Skeeter's true tragic backstory. I hadn't really remembered this aside. It put some of Skeeter's later comments on drugs into context, I think.
Yeah, yeah. Um, Skitter thinks to herself about the other harms of drugs. Elementary and middle school kids disappearing from her classes, either from their own drug use or dealings, or from their family members. And in the background of all this, Skitter has her bugs collecting money from an open safe in the office.
Look, if you can multitask, multitask. And if you can
Mhm.
steal a bunch of money from criminals while you're multitasking, yeah, sure, why not?
Oh, most def.
Cha-ching!
Hmm.
Yeah, and Skinner, in fact, just marveled at how her power can handle these complex tasks. The quote is, "It wasn't perfect. It was a little clumsy, but it still caught me off guard just how well they were able to coordinate for something like this, without any conscious direction on my part. She can just point them at a task, put them on autopilot, and they sort of just figure it out."
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. Um, Bitch strips the bed naked of its plastic sheets and hurries back to Neuter with Sundancer's help. They lay out the sheet at Neuter's feet, and Bitch returns with the gloves and a first aid kit. Sundancer takes off her gloves to put the plastic gloves on, and for the first time, Skitter notes someone's whiteness, which also confirms that Vic designed Sundancer's costume badly. Fuck!
Oops.
Um, that's a self
Oh,
note from Vic.
I'm not certain when the new art kicks in, so I just want to remind you to change it when appropriate.
Oh, I shall.
Okay. So after hauling Neuter onto the sheet, Skitter directs Bitch to go grab as many purses as she can. I have a little quote here. She didn't move this time. She just glared at me. Fucking move! I shouted at her. She gave me the evil eye before she left again. Skitter's bitch handling skills are definitely improving.
Mm-hmm. She tells Sundancer how to clean the wound, and Sundancer begins working. Skitter starts taping the wound closed. I can only hope I was doing the right things here. CEO of Overconfidence, says Vic. Skitter's soon to be patented double glove technique is not helping, though.
Yeah, Sun Dancer takes off her gloves to put on the waterproof ones. Skitter's just like, nah, I'll just put them on top of my existing gloves already. You know.
Yeah. So I started the speed draw.
So Bitch arrives with the purses, which Skitter starts dumping everywhere, looking for pads. Skitter and Sundancer start tearing them open and taping them to Neuter. If he lives, his teammates might give him a hard time. Skitter probably thinks that because her team includes a bunch of snarky assholes, other teams must as well. They bundle up the new boy and lift him with the sheet up onto Brutus.
Hmm. Um,
Yeah, I think the Undersiders have a slightly higher population of snarky assholes than most teams.
yeah, I mean,
Mostly
it
Regix and
depends.
Tattletale.
Yeah,
Tattletale by herself counts for several, I think.
yeah. It's true. It's true. Vic said, I hate full cover costumes. I think her gloves are attached to her sleeves, lol. So it makes
Oh,
sense.
yeah. That probably makes sense, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, like, it's basically like mostly a one piece thing. So, anyway, the gang is interrupted by a gauntleted, huge ass Kool-Aid Manning through the wall. Um, I wow. That's one way to put it. I think one of the twins busts through the wall is what Vic is referring to here.
Mm-hmm.
Go! I shouted at Bitch. Take him to the others. Call Tattletale. Get the number for that Cape doctor. Get medical attention for anyone who needs it. She hesitated, opened her mouth to protest. I raised my voice. Do not fuck with me here! Yeah, firmness and profanity continue to be a winning combo with Bitch.
Yeah. So a section of walls are moved, and ABB members followed by Lung start running through, trying to get away from Fenja and Menja. Lung is sitting at 15 feet tall and is barely human. Seems to be sprouting the beginning of wings. Still not really in kaiju territory. You're slacking, Lung. Come on. Get with the
Yeah,
program.
exactly.
Bitch. I can read this quote here if you don't mind.
No, that's okay. This is just I would have gotten a full 4 for 4 on the bitch.
Oh, well then go for it. Yeah, go for the combo.
Bitch, I murmured. I'll leave the rest to you.
If you don't leave now, I don't think you're going to get another chance. But what do you want more? To fight, here and now, or to make sure Faultline and the other groups don't have an excuse to do anything to our teammates? I saw her hesitate. The fact that she even had to think about it, I could have slapped her.
Yeah. Oh, we're getting a Vale Most Unexpected Worm Art Award, first place. Vic, Taylor's having closure from her trigger, okay? Attacking someone else with bloody pads. I thought it needed illustrated. Vale says it's perfect. So continuing here, Kaiser comes in trying to act suave, nearly impaling Lung. Emphasis on nearly. He's clearly not making such much headway with Lung, which actually means he's just losing. What a loser! Fenya
Yep.
and Menya shrink enough to fit through the hole in the wall, then grow up to 20 feet. One of them carries a sword and shield, the other a spear.
Bitch rides on towards Labyrinth, leaving Judas and Angelica. Their entire bodies were taut with tension, their heads low as they glared at the new arrivals. Said, yeah, leaving those dogs behind. Lung turned to survey the room. His men were arranged in a loose circle around him, facing us. His eyes settled on me. Ooh, he rumbled. His words were distorted by the shape of his altered mouth, but it was easy enough to guess what he had just said. You.
Yeah.
And I had just the comment here at the end. Or maybe he's just very excited to see his good friend Skitter. Ooh, he's busy imagining the fun times they're about to have together.
Yeah. Definitely the second one. He's thinking about how much Skitter's his best friend, and
Well, yeah, he's so happy to be here in this bakery.
Mm-hmm.
It's just fun times all around.
Exactly. This chapter, another good one, I think. I mean, it's basically not fighting. It's just like until the end. It's just like the inter-team argument between Skitter and Bitch, and then the first aid stuff. But I mean, all that's really good.
Well, also, I think it's important to take moments where you lower the tempo a bit, especially when you're about to launch into something like, oh, people are going to be hyped for this fight with Lung. So you had the fight with Oni Lee. Instead of rolling straight into it, we take a moment to shift the tension down a bit, and then we're going to ramp it right back up again.
Vale says in insect culture, they're technically married now. I'm gonna assume that you mean Taylor and Rachel, but I'm not 100% sure. Let's see here. So I think we'll probably just jump into the powers, knowledge, and world building section.
Sure.
Do you want me to start off here? There's a lot to say about Oni Lee.
I can take the start. We had a little quote we pulled out, which was, I knew his power was a hybrid between duplicating himself and teleportation. He could teleport, but when he did, he left a body behind that could act autonomously for a few seconds. I really like powers like this. Teleportation's a very traditional sort of superpower. You can think of things like Nightcrawler or whoever else. But Wildbow puts a twist on it.
Yeah, I mean, for Nightcrawler, teleportation wasn't enough of a power. He, like, literally has a powers package when they first introduced him. He has, like, 3 or 4 powers. He can fade into the shadows, not just because he's blue, but, like, in a very he is not visible to humans at all kind of way. He
Mm-hmm.
has, like, the super climbing skills, a prehensile tail that he can, like, sword fight with. Um, like, he's got tons of powers. And that because teleporting just didn't seem like an interesting enough on its own, even though it's already a pretty cool power. Um, but yeah. So another quote here: "I could see him in his black bodysuit with belts and bandoliers of knives on it, his mask with the demonic face and leering, fanged ear-to-ear grin. He's such a jolly figure. Oni Lee likes to smile and give others smiles. Glasgow smiles, that is."
Oh, yeah. He does his job and he does it happily. Appears to need line of sight to teleport. Fighting him inside may have been wiser, although the sniper support turned out to be pivotal in the fight.
His clones explode into the gigantic dust clouds of carbon ash when they expire, which is pretty important to the way he be moving around and maneuvering.
Yeah, it's one of those things that I didn't really think about, but is like as a side effect of his power, you can leverage that in all sorts of interesting ways as well.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Definitely.
Even if it isn't grade A coke. Um, and yeah, as I mentioned earlier, he isn't hurt by what happens to his clones, so he follows those ABCs. Always be cloning.
Exactly. Coffee is for cloners. His costume and various weapons, like knives, teleport with him, so it makes sense that a bunch of bugs could come along as well, but it's a major downside. And we'll see later, there's other people with kind of similar powers that are able to, like, decide what comes along, but
Mm-hmm.
clearly the version that Oni Lee has, he can't.
Yeah, it's just stuff that's like close enough to him, basically.
Vic says, I don't think teleporting is enough on its own in Worm either. It's always got to be comboed with something. Yeah, and I'm thinking of other teleporters who are even like halfway interesting, like Kuroko. She doesn't just teleport herself. Like at first, like that was the last of her powers to manifest before she could only teleport objects to other places.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of powers where like this thing by itself is too vanilla, like just teleporting or being super strong or flight, for example. Like those things, you're like, oh, that could be a power. Like it's more than people can do. But it's
Mm-hmm.
also sort of not enough to really have something to sink your teeth into.
Exactly. There's gotta be more meat to it if it's gonna be in like a story setting most of the
Mm-hmm.
time. Although I can't imagine in a setting where nobody else could fly and most people didn't have like there were hardly any powers, like one guy who could fly would be pretty like he'd probably seem pretty epic to the other people.
Yeah.
I mean, I'd think somebody would be pretty epic if they could fly in real life. Um I mean, they might turn out to suck or something, but I want them to
I
fly
mean,
around for good.
sure.
Anyway, um, uh,
I can read this, yeah.
yeah.
We don't learn much about how Labyrinth's power works in these chapters, but we do get to see that whatever she's doing, it's pretty dramatic. Sidewalks fall into bottomless pits, the entire cityscape quickly warps into something quite different. And you
hmm
want to take the quote?
Yeah. This is you? I asked Labyrinth, awed, as I climbed down off Brutus. She didn't reply. Instead, she reached out and touched the side of my chin. The images of arches, pillars, and checkerboard patterns fell away like a house of cards. Hallucinations, I spoke as Labyrinth made a waving gesture towards Bitch's head. She looked at me and shook her head slowly. They're not hallucinations? I asked.
Yeah, it's really sad we don't have Quinn here now for two reasons. First, they could come up with weird restricted powers, and two, so we could try to guess what Labyrinth's power is exactly. Take another shot at it, because he took a guess at Sundancer last week, right?
Mm-hmm. That's right. Yep.
Yeah, and
Um,
we get a glimpse here, but there's enough left ambiguous, or the details and mechanics of it are ambiguous enough that we're still left sort of wondering on Labyrinth.
yeah, definitely. Megafire says, I love Labyrinth so much. She's one of my favorite background characters, and I always cheer up when she shows up. Cool. Yeah, she's pretty cool.
Yeah. To be fair, I like most of Faultland's crew. I think they're an interesting group of people. And
Mm-hmm.
Labyrinth is one of the people in the story who has a very interesting power and a very interesting mentality. Just uh, the way her power has made her brain. That I'm also always happy to see her on screen.
Mm, yeah. Um. So, did we already say this?
No, but I basically covered that already.
Yeah. Okay. So we got minor appearances. We see Neuter's air quotes acid blood. It's a cute defense mechanism, but it does complicate giving him medical attention.
Yep.
Acid in the colloquial sense, not in the xenomorph sense. Um, but
Yep.
Benya
And it's
and
mixing.
oh
And it's busy mixing with all this flour and sugar around to create who knows what sort of
oh
slurry.
no oh no because that means they could use it for their criminal baking. Ah,
Yeah,
damn it.
they're gonna
We
make some real sick bread.
we only helped them. Yeah.
We get to see Fenja and Menja for just a moment. The Kool-Aid manning their way through walls. And we get to see that they can grow smaller or larger very rapidly. They go from being gigantic outside to being small to fit through the hole they make with their fists, and then big again on the inside.
Yeah. It's a pretty good power. If only they weren't terrible people.
Well, okay. I think you can say that about a lot of people in Worm.
Yeah, I mean Oni Lee got a good power. If only he was not a terrible person.
Mm-hmm.
Um um
Speaking of which,
yeah. Kaiser's metal spikes are enough to give Lung pause, though Taylor is unsure that they would penetrate Lung scales. Uh, and then I agree with Greg wrote this, but I'm agreeing with it as I'm seeing it. I'm further skeptical that they would do any permanent damage unless he hit the brain or killed him in one blow. Regenerators, man. Yeah.
yeah, Lung especially. It feels like there's other generators we see later who also get stronger as they regenerate. And just yeah, they're in that sort of class of people where if you don't take them out like right now, it's just going to get worse. So if your first blow couldn't do it, your 10th blow is not going to do it, and now you're in a much worse situation than you were in before.
Yeah. Yeah. There are people who I can think of with pretty similar powers, and like once they get going, they're just like, yeah, it just goes downhill. Um,
Yeah, and there's also just capes that also have sort of a spin up, um, where a lot of the like shakers have stuff like this, where the more time they have to manipulate the environment, the worse it gets for you. So
right, right, yeah, for sure. Um, I was thinking of one who they just have a very minor appearance at the end of Ward, but basically they take an injury and then like they kind of shed their skin and become like physically stronger like over and over again.
mhm.
Um, and it's one of those powers that's like really gross because you're piling up like a bunch of physical mass of like dead skins of you. Classic gross ward power. But anyway,
Sounds like fun. Yep. And then lastly, we have Lung, who we see for just a moment at the end doing a very bad Godzilla impression. Not much to say about him here, but I'm sure we'll see plenty of him next chapter. Look forward to it.
indeed, indeed. So we are finally getting to the audience participation question. Make up a badly specific superpower, such as you can fly, but only while you're touching a rodent, and the more rodents you're holding, the faster you fly, or something else weird and specific and often not very useful. So I'll be reading through the audience participation answers first.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see here. Okay, so Bill says, I put a bit of time into this. I hope the concept works. He had a kill order at 14. The order was pages long, detailing actions and scenarios that would unlock the order, leaving the home where he lived without official PRT escort or PRT orders and escort, speaking to anyone with a volume above a whisper, initiating speech with anyone at any time without following protocol, owning, holding, or using any device that allowed communication in any way. The
Do you
house
want to
was.
swap off, or
Oh, sure,
you're gonna
yeah.
read the whole thing?
No,
Sure.
yeah, read the next paragraph.
The house was guarded at 8 ordinal positions, each post over 100 meters from the house, with one guard watching in and one watching out. Each shift change involved the guards walking to the house, one at a time, asking for a word, monitored as they hear it, then leaving. His days included single therapy after a single monitored word, school via video training, and any activities or hobbies he wished to pursue. His meals were delivered in a lockbox through the front door. He could ask for and usually get whatever he wanted. His evenings, he could watch whatever he wanted, play any games he wanted, read or pursue whatever he wished, always alone.
His home was only a mile from the local PRT headquarters, all normal access removed, only a single straight road to and from the house for guards to monitor. Video only feeds watched by a thinker from whatever group had availability to make sure he did not communicate outside of the most carefully controlled interactions.
Master 1, Trump 1. No parahuman response allowed. One of the oddest PRT ratings, and the youngest kill order the head of the PRT had ever authorized, for a parahuman who is nearly powerless. When he speaks, any parahuman who can hear him finds his words fascinating. So much they can't imagine doing anything but listen. They hear none of the words. There is no transfer of knowledge or information, just a diamond hard linking of fascination. At first, within a minute, fascination turns to disgust, which turns to fury. They will continue to listen as long as he speaks. When he stops speaking, uh, if it goes on long enough, they will want nothing except to murder him as immediately and efficiently as possible. Within minutes of him stopping, the fascination and reaction ends. No long term effects, extensively tested, and no ability to affect the parahuman other than instilling them with eventual murderous rage pointed only at him.
The kill order is partly because any parahuman that hears his voice is outed. Hero, villain, vigilante, retired, anyone with the power is outed as a parahuman. They are also neutralized. As long as he can be heard, they will listen intently. He could end all resistance during an Endbringer fight. He could neutralize and reveal all parahumans in a nation if he became a villain or controlled by any organization willing to use his power. His impact could be devastating. His existence is one of the better kept secrets of the PRT.
It probably would have been for the best if he died when he triggered. It was pure luck he survived his first words, and quick response from a local thinker that identified his power while he was unconscious. He is one of the scariest, weakest, most unfortunate, most interesting cases currently in PRT detention. Research into his power could lead to so many answers.
Cool.
Yeah, very nice write up. I like it. It makes me think a lot of uh like SCP write ups, if you've ever read any of those.
I don't think I have. What does that stand for?
Secure Containment Protocol. I'm trying to remember the exact uh we'll get
Oh,
back
is
to it
it?
in a second.
Oh, wait. Oh, I think I know what you mean. Like from the Arc 17 stuff.
No, it's not worm related. It's
Oh,
a whole like sort of a kitchen sink horror setting is how I'd describe it.
Oh,
focused
okay.
around an organization that contains and studies various horror phenomena.
Gotcha. Um, yeah. So,
Okay,
uh,
there. Megafire has it. Secure, contain, protect. There we go.
oh,
Yeah.
it grew out of the creepypasta craze. Hmm. Um, I'm gonna read the whole first block from 2 + 4 × 5. Then, if you want to read the second block. Um,
Sure.
so, I up with a power that's actually generally useful, but kind of sucks to use. A breaker thinker power where you can predict the future, but you have to go into a power induced coma to do so, during which your body is completely defenseless. The moment you enter the coma, you determine the coma's duration, as well as how far you see into the future. In other words, you can sleep for 2 hours starting at 1 p.m. When you wake up at 3 p.m., your brain is suddenly filled with detailed visions of the following 2 hours. 3 p.m. to 5 p.m. If you sleep for 30 seconds, you'll be able to predict events in the next 30 seconds after you wake up. If you sleep for 3.5 days, you'll be able to predict the rest of the week. One downside, besides the coma part, is that the future isn't set in stone, so you might change events just by applying your future knowledge. For example, if you go to sleep for the entire month of July, there's no guarantee that August is going to play out exactly like you foresaw, especially if you take actions that alter the course of events. On August 29th, the bomb is going to go off in the train station. Then the PRT prepares for the bomb, which deters the terrorists from actually setting their plan into motion, so the bomb threat is neutralized before it even has a chance to happen. Also, because you were in a coma, you completely missed the evil Tinker's monster attack July 6th through 8th.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah. A precogs are always in demand, I think. But this one comes with a pretty serious downside. Yeah, where you'd want to sort of keep it in little clumps.
I think what you could do is like be like if they were in a big city like New York, if they were like a hero cape,
Mhm.
and they like use that to predict the future for like 6 hours at a time to sort of get a gauge of the next day every day.
Yeah, I was wondering that, like, if you actually get rested during this coma, because if so, like, if you just quote unquote sleep for your normal 8 hours, you get coverage on half the day for free, so to speak.
Hmm. Um, and even if not, I think if you just are predicting like several hours into the future to like hit up like morning news and stuff, like
Mm.
that's still a pretty big information coup. You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely.
Um, yeah. But yeah, then if you want to read the next idea that 2 + 4 × 5 had.
Sure. Yeah, he says another simpler idea, a gradual transformation, sort of like lungs power, except instead of getting powered up through fighting, you get powered up by how much drugs are in your body. You'll unlock different aspects of your transformation by doing different drugs. Snorting cocaine might make you faster, whereas doing meth might give you bulletproof armor and enhanced strength. Unfortunately, the worse the drug is for your mental state, the more powerful you get. In other words, in order to use the strongest aspects of your power, you have to be essentially completely zonked out, which means you might not be particularly helpful in a fight.
Hmm. Yeah. That's a pretty like
Yeah,
that's a pretty worm power. Like that's a very parahumans.
yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Cool. Um. Well. So you said you had some answers.
Yeah, I came up with a couple.
Oh, sorry. Vic, just we'll drop
Ah,
in Vic's real quick.
sure, of course.
Superpower from Homestuck. Time travel at 1 second per second. Boom.
Yeah,
Boom.
get into the oven.
Yeah.
What a
Uh.
great power.
Anyway, sorry.
Anyways, I said there are a couple I thought of. One was where you'd have an emotion manipulation power, but the important part of it is that you have to draw from items that have had that emotion directed towards them, sort of like batteries. So if like a kid really loved this stuffed animal, you could use that stuffed animal as a sort of battery for projecting love or comfort at people. The trick being, of course, that then you have to have like this grab bag of things, a knife from a murderer who was, absolutely furious or filled with rage. Stuffed animals or other keepsakes that are will calm people down. And you use them up, so you sort of have to be continuously rooting around looking for things, being like, okay, I'm out of fucking rage guns. I gotta find some more rage guns. Uh, to keep your power working, you become like a pack rat parahuman.
That's so funny. Like that reminds me of another pack rat parahuman from Ward who does project powers through. I mean, not emotion powers, but like basically brute powers and speedster powers to people through like carrying around trophies.
Mm.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, and then the other one I had as an idea was sort of a mashup between Leet and Eidolon, where you have a power that can do just about anything, but it only does one thing at a time, and when you use it, it breaks, and you have to swap to a new random power. And just like
Mm.
Eidolon, it takes a few seconds for a new power to sort of settle in. So while you can cycle through looking for something useful, in the context of a fight, you're going to want to sort of creatively use whatever thing falls in your lap. Otherwise, you're just going to be useless for long periods of time. So, like, you could have a mover power that will get you to the disaster already like queued up. But once you get there, you're going to have something random.
Mm-hmm.
And if it's really far away, you might not get a mover power to get back again for who knows how long. So you just sort of have
Right.
to play it by ear at all times.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, that's a pretty cool concept. Yeah. Another very parahuman's power.
Mm.
If the power breaks, does it is it still in the pool of powers or gone?
I guess I would say yes, but the pool would be like so vast, the chances of you rolling it again would be virtually nothing.
Cool.
Or if you want, I guess you could just do like a full on, yeah. The pool runneth empty eventually, where you're like, oh, there's a pool of like 5,000 powers it's drawing from. If I run out of them, I'm out. But that's
Well,
then you
I
got then you got to
figured
kill some people.
typically like I don't know. I feel like the bigger the restrictions, the more the free use almost. Like for that kind of
Hmm.
power, it feels like the way that they try and collect like it feels like the balance that would be struck would be something like you had first described where it doesn't break through because like Leet is getting like kind of a ridiculously powerful like boon by being able to do anything once. He's just wasting it.
Yeah,
But
but
being
unlike
able to
the star,
use a
Leet's
single
able
use
to
power,
choose. Yeah.
yeah. Um, and just typically they kind of like balance themselves around. Like some powers totally crack the scales in different ways, but uh, they're never too generous to the user.
Hmm.
Yeah. Um. So yeah, I think that we're kind of at the end. I'm gonna read out the links real quick. So the music in this arc. Oh yes, no. This week I did have a actual discussion question. I forgot. So it's discuss. This is for once we've read 5.9 and 5.10. Discuss Taylor's new understanding of Rachel. Both what she was able to figure out on her own and what Lisa told her in private.
Mm.
Um, yeah. So yeah, the stuff is the music as we've been using is by CO.AG Music, and for this arc we've been using No Escape, the Crime and Mystery edit. The Discord server link is in both the description and in the channel description. The author of the work being discussed here can be supported on Patreon at patreon.com/wildbow. Um, the full text of the work is available online for free as well at parahumans.wordpress.com. And then the fan-made audiobook of the entire work is available at audioworm.rain-online.org. And thanks for being on, Greg. And do you have any last thoughts? Any last words?
Yeah, thanks for having me as always. I'm just looking forward to the conclusion of this arc.
Oh my god, the fight will be bonkers. And the stream will be ending. Goodbye.